Good morning. I should say good afternoon. Today we're going to go back to Mesilat Yesharim to perek Chav Gimel part 1. As Beshem Hashem Naaseh V'Natzliach. This shiur is dedicated to the safety and safe return of our hostages and soldiers. Refuah Shlema to our cholim, our soldiers and hostages. And Zechariah Dov ben Pearl Shira, Avraham ben Chana, Ora Badalia, Shimon Daniel ben Michal. And Le'ilui Nishmat, all those who were murdered on October 7 and since. And to all our singles, שיזכו לבנות בית נאמן בישראל בקדושה ובטהרה. And thank you to all my listeners for your dedication. And may Hashem bless you all. Chol Tuv. Thank you, Hashem, for all your chasadim and your nisim that you have performed and still continue to perform for us. So, we are back to the Ramchal. We are learning about anava, humility. So, the Ramchal says like this, Bederech kinyan anava. How do we acquire humility? So the way to acquire humility, anava, as we know, working on the trait of anava is so important, and it is the basic of our emunah. And not only that it's the basic of our emunah, it's that if we don't have anava, then our emunah is affected. It affects our daily relationship with Hashem, and it affects the way we do mitzvot. And Chachamim teach us that someone who is arrogant and full of himself doesn't have room for Hashem. There's no room. One person, when someone is too full of himself, he really has no room for Hashem. Rosh Hashanah is coming very soon. And the Yom Kippur and the Sukkot. And we all know we need to improve, to do teshuvah. We need to improve our traits, even if it's a tiny, tiny little step, even like a baby step. But we need to improve, especially knowing what we have gone through this past year, as a nation, and especially in Eretz Israel, and we feel it wherever Jews are in the world. We feel what's going on. So it is important for us to make the extra effort this year more than ever before. So Be'ezrat Hashem, we should have a good year coming up, and the year that's coming up should be a good year, Be'ezrat Hashem, and we should all be in Eretz Israel. So the Ramchal teaches us the way to acquire anava. There are two ways that we have to that a person has to practice and get used to. What are those two ways? One is training, and one is contemplation, meaning thinking really very deeply about this trait of anava. So today we're going to look at the first way that the Ramchal suggests and advises us. So now let's take a look at understanding the Ramchal. Ramchal says training. How do we train ourselves? How do I train myself to have more anava, or to actually have anava, and not fall into the into ga'ava, into being arrogant and full of myself. Okay? So Ramchal says it's a training. How is that? A person should gradually accustom himself to act humbly. It means it's a matter of training with ourselves day by day, every day, making this into a habit. It becomes a second nature to us to act in a humble way. So, for example, the Ramchal says, for example, when we're in a place where people who are really important people uh, are sitting in a certain area, and I might be an important person, but I don't have to go and sit in that area. So sit in the back of those people. Don't have to be in the front with these people. Or when we're walking on as a group, there's a whole group of people. So it's okay for me to walk in the back of that group and not have to be the front of that group, leading the group. Wearing clothing that are tznuim. What does this mean, tznuim? Doesn't mean that I'm not covered. Yes, I am covered. But tznuim means here clothing that is not going to attract attention, either by the color, like very bright colors, or the design of my dress or my skirt or my top or whatever it is that I'm wearing. It should not really attract attention. It should be respectful, but not impressive to the point where everyone is just looking at that outfit. The Ramchal explains that anava is most important. Sorry, I go back again. The Ramchal explains that anava is most important as a humble look, and it is expressed in certain ways of conduct, of behavior. So it's a look that I put on myself, let's say my clothing, if they are attracting too much attention, or an action that is like being walking at the head of a group, or going and sitting among very important people. So even if one has already acquired that level of anava, but the fact that I continue to be careful with my actions, that will serve as an event that will cause and bring about change. It means it's not that I can do this, let's say, for about a month and say, okay, that's it. I don't have to work to push myself more. But yes, push ourselves more. We need to push ourselves more, because by doing so, that is what's going to bring the change, the final change, the real change in me, so that I don't have ga'ava, so that I'm not arrogant. The Ramchal also says and advises us to make these changes. How? Me'at, gradually, little by little, slowly, baby steps. And this, in fact, is an important principle in Avodat Hashem, not only regarding Ga'ava, regarding anything we do. Whether we want to become Shomer Shabbat, or we want to become, be covered better with our clothing, or whether we want to eat kosher, better kosher food, whatever it is, whatever we do, it has to be in baby steps, has to be done slowly and gradually. And specifically, when it comes to a character development. So the Ramchal says there is a principle a saying from the Gemara, Haba letaher mesayin oto. One who comes to purify himself, it means that he wants to be a better person, perform mitzvot better, work on his character traits. Hashem helps him. Mesayin oto. Hashem helps him. The Vilna Gaon says that sometimes a person might try, or he's trying to improve himself in a certain area that he knows. Let's say someone is stubborn. I know I'm stubborn, and it's not a good thing to be, right? It's good to be stubborn for a mitzvah, but not good to be stubborn just for the sake of being stubborn, right? So that's not a good thing to have. So let's say I have that, and however, I'm not getting the siyata dishmaya. Hashem is not really helping me to overcome this stubbornness. How come? Didn't we just say that Hashem helps anyone who wants to purify himself? So what happened? So the Vilna Gaon says like this. It happens that Hashem doesn't help a person when sometimes someone tries to suddenly skip to a higher level that is much higher than his present one. So if presently I am here and I try to go over there, so the gap is big, but I say to myself, yes, I can do it. I go quickly, I go up here, but really I'm not ready for it. I'm not quite ready for it yet, right? That Hashem doesn't help. Hashem doesn't assist us. Why? Because that's not the proper way to work on oneself. It's not. Working in such a way, like going so fast, high, very high, higher than we actually can manage, then can only end in failure. Improvement, the Ramchal says, doesn't come in leaps, but in steps. Me'at, me'at. Just as when we do anything, whether we're cooking or we're doing sewing or building or baking, we don't just put everything together and that's it, right? So if I want to bake, I know I have to mix the oil or margarine with the sugar, and the eggs only, or I might have to separate the eggs and beat the white by themselves. So there's steps that I have to follow, and if I don't, I'm not going to have a cake that's anyone can really enjoy. So it's the same way. When we come to working, especially on midot, one cannot jump very high and say, oh no, I can do it all at once. No, we can't. Rabbi Chaim Volodin, in his Sefer Ruach Hayim, he explains this concept through an example. So he says, a long time ago, there was a king, and this king ordered his servant to go up from the ground floor all the way to the top of a tall tower, for whatever reason, right? Now, the king knows it's going to take a long time because the servant is going to go one step after up, another step and another step to reach all the way. There may be maybe 500 steps or maybe 600 steps until he reaches the top of the tower, right? And the king knows it's going to take a while, and he's not going to get upset. He knows his servant is not going to be able to spring wings and start flying all the way to the top, right? But what's going to be... Sorry, I want to stop here about this king and come back later about this. So the servant has got to climb one step at a time, right, in order to get to the top. So too, our mission, the mission of each and every one of us, is to serve Hashem with the best of intentions. But in order to reach that level, one must start at the beginning, at the foundation, serving Hashem. Even if at first it is with personal benefit in mind. Or I'm doing it because it's good, or it looks good, or I feel good about it. So that's why I'm doing it, right? מתוך שלא לשמה, בא לשמה. Chachamim tell us that even if I just at the beginning I'm just doing it for my own benefit, like I'm doing it without really the pure intention of serving Hashem, just because I like it or it makes me feel good, so that's why I'm doing it. Later on, because I'm getting into the habit, and as long as I know that at one point I know I have to do it for the right purpose, that means to serve Hashem, so I will get to it. I will get there, right? So we are performing at a low level, and eventually, and we have to keep that in mind, we'll get to the level of lishma, of doing it, performing the mitzvot because of Hashem, because Hashem commanded us, not because it's good for me. Okay? And just like in the example of the king and the servant, if the king would have found the servant just walking around and wasting his time instead of actually starting to climb up those stairs all the way to the top of the tower, in that case, the servant would be held responsible for disobeying, for not following the king's command, right? So our next question is, and that's the question of the Ramchal, why a gradual approach is necessary for a person to achieve anava. Why? And he answers like this. It is the nature of the heart, every human being, to feel superior and conceited to others. Some of us have a little more, some of us have a little less, but that's the nature, right? And it is difficult to remove completely this natural tendency and acquire anava. It's difficult. It's a difficult step, unless one uses a tactic, the strategy that through one's actions, which is more in our control, I can control my actions, right? Like I can walk in at the back of a group. I don't have to go and sit in the front, right? And such actions. So slowly, this quality, I'm making a conscious effort not to sit in the front with the important people, and making a conscious effort not to be at the head of the group, right? So that quality of anava will be integrated into my thoughts and feelings. And my thoughts and feelings are less in my control. Yes, I still can control them, but not as much as my action. Ramchal explains the feeling of getting excited for a mitzvah can actually be cultivated, it can be refined by external actions, by actions that stimulate and encourage excitement. For example, running for a mitzvah, right? So we have the very famous story in the Gemara of Hillel HaZaken, that as soon as tefillah would be over, he would be running, leaving the Bet Midrash, and he would go running on the street. So his Talmidim, who wanted to learn everything from Hillel, they asked him, Rabbi, where are you running? So he said, well, I'm running to perform a mitzvah. A mitzvah? What mitzvah? Where are you going? What are you going to do? What are you about to do? And he explained, I'm about to take a bath to keep myself clean. That's a mitzvah. And for that, every day he would be running to go and do the mitzvah of washing himself. This is what we had learned before, if you remember, at the very beginning, when we had been learning about zerizut, about not being lazy, about doing things with excitement and right away, right? And so here too, the inner humility can be cultivated. It really can, by behaving in a humble manner. Again, like we said before, sitting in the back, not walking at the head of everyone, wearing clothing that's not going to attract attention. And this is why Chachamim teach us, and as is stated in the Gemara, Le'olam yehe adam arum beyirah. A person should always be resourceful in trying to achieve fear of Hashem. Arum is naked. It means like, don't just, you cannot be not, you have to be creative. This is what really it's telling us. Be creative, right? And look for ways to use against tendencies or against our will not to change. The change of our nature, the change of our inclinations, and the urge to act in a certain way until we overcome and take control of our nature. So this is really very important. Be resourceful, be creative, find ways how to overcome and make the change so that we can control our nature. So here the Ramchal explains the problem that outward act of anava, humility, when not matched by internal feelings. So it's only outward. Oh, okay, I don't want to show off, so I'm going to be at the back of the group, or I'm going to sit in the back of the seats, right? Wherever it may be. Then, but our feeling really, we still feel the gava. We still feel, I should really be in the front. But we're not quite happy with ourselves, right? That's no good. That's what we call hypocritical. That means they contradict. They're opposite of one claims to feel. Because really, on the inside of me, I still feel that, I deserve to be there in the front. And I'm not happy with myself. I'm sitting in the back just because, just to show off. That's no good, right? So how does it work then? How do we make it today's, so it goes together, right? So the answer is like this. The Ramchal says like this. When such behavior is to follow with the goal of reaching internal anava, I am sitting in the back because I am mindful. I know I want to work on my anava, and there's no reason for me to be upset with myself, right? That is not being hypocritical, but it is a wise strategy. This is what the Ramchal says. So, wise plan of action. In where? For what? In the service of Avodat Hashem. In the service of Hashem. So the act of humility of anava are hypocritical when one begins to do something that we take a long time or they'll be difficult to achieve, but one does it in a way that it is not sincere, right? To cover up the ga'ava that I have inside me, the haughtiness, right? So that is what is hypocritical. That inside me I'm not happy because I still want to have that seat in the front. I still want to be the leader of the group and be walking at the head of the group. That is hypocritical, right? But when actions are done and they're undertaken as a way to acquire internal humility, that on my inside I'm happy with the way I am, right? With the change I'm trying to make with myself. These actions are honest and wise. And in fact, that is a necessary step on the path to true humility, to true anava. It means that there has to be a balance. Yes, on the outside, I am pushing myself to behave with humility, with anava. At the same time, I must be happy with myself, with what I am doing. And so the first step, the Ramchal says, to anava, is for a person to recognize clearly, but very clearly, that he has no right to feel pride about his accomplishments or about his situation. Why shouldn't I feel pride? If I am beautiful, it's Hashem who gave me the beauty. If I am smart, it's because Hashem gave me the brains, the good brains. If I am rich, it's because Hashem made me rich. If I am creative, it's because Hashem made me creative. That means that whatever I have really is not mine. None of it is mine. It all belongs to Hashem. So why should I have pride? Right? And as long as one has not internalized it as a natural feeling of the heart, it means I have to recognize and remember, right, that in my heart has to become part of me. It has to become part of me to have anava and not feel slighted or hurt, not at all. Then one has not acquired the midata anava. As long as I don't feel inside me, I'm not happy with what my actions are doing, right? What I'm doing, I'm not sitting in the front, but I'm not happy. But anyways, I'm going to sit in the back. That's not good. That's not good at all. That's not being honest, right? So by using a strategy, a person helps himself. A person helps himself to get anava. So there's one thing that we need to remember. Is two things. The action, our actions, but at the same time, when we are doing these actions to influence us, to feel anava, we have to remember that whatever actions we are taking, it is only for us to eventually feel inside, in our heart, the anava. And we are happy with ourselves. And we are very happy, very, very happy, sitting in the back, not being at the head of the group, not putting everyone's attention to me. No. Then I'm very happy. Okay? So may Hashem help us to overcome our weaknesses, especially ga'ava, so we can serve Him. As we know, ga'ava really, we can serve Hashem when we have ga'ava. Okay? And so may Hashem help us to overcome our weaknesses, right? So we can serve Him in simcha, in happiness, and with a full heart. Ketiva vechatima tova.